Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host GamerK, and as you can tell by my shirt and the artwork up there, for the first week of June, and thank God we're finally here. Seriously, did someone jump into a DeLorean, step on a bug, and for some reason, all this madness is happening in the world? Well, if so, someone go back in time and fix it, please, because I'm all about fed up. But enough about the craziness in the world. It's time for another game review. This whole month, all the videos were chosen by my father because June is his birth month. I'm sorry, I'm just adjusting the camera so it looks better. It is his birth month, and his birthday will be next week on the 10th, so I'll be doing one of his favorites that week, but he picked the entire list for this month. And it's game review month, apparently. Maybe next year in June, I'll have it all video games. I mean, everything's, but you know what I mean. But enough of my babbling. We are here to talk about one of my favorite games, brought by Telltale, came in 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Back to the Future, the video game. That's right, and instead of going through episode by episode by episode, I'm just going to review the entire game as a whole, cutting out a whole bunch of the stuff that I don't need to spill, just going over the gameplay, the story, how this game is pure glory, and I hope when Telltale gets back on their feet, they start building from the ground up, going back to these types of games. I mean, I like the decision-making games, but I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, for this review, we don't need roads. I do not have sunglasses. I should have gotten sunglasses for that bit. But I'm a cheap Canadian production, and I'm proud of it. Not as good as Instant Pepsi, but still good. So, starting off with the game, Back to the Future, the video game, is a point-and-click adventure game. Such as like the Sam & Max games, Monkey Island, and pretty much every single Telltale game ever made. It's point and click, so a point and click adventure without the need for having to make tough choices in the game and then having to replay the game to do it all. So, this is a fun game, and it's enjoyable for any Back to the Future fan. If you're a Back to the Future fan and you have not played this game, shame on you. Shame on you and your family, who are probably going to be changed around into some poor version of your old family, just like Marty's was, but reversed. Anyway, the game takes place. It starts off with the classic scene from the first film when Doc is showing Marty the DeLorean for the first time and doing the experiment. And afterwards, for some reason, Einstein didn't come back exactly like it did. And after going through some stuff, Doc begins to vanish. And it was all just a dream. So the game takes place 1 year after the event of the third movie, so 1968. Or 1966? 1968, because Marty would be 16 in the movies, and he's 18 in this one. So 2 years, my bad. I'm a little off on getting the information. And I just spent the last week playing the game, and I beat it in 2 just to have some fun before the review. So, Doc evidently there's an estate sale at Doc's, and he's trying to stop Doc's notebook with the flux capacitor from falling into the wrong hands, which inevitably means Biff. Now, one thing I love about this game is how you use the objects in the environment. Just like any point-and-click adventure game, you use the environment and the items you pick up during the game to kind of solve the puzzle not a puzzle, but the scenario that's going on in the world in order to progress. I love games like that. It's a little challenging if you're not really sure what to look for, and trust me, you're going to want to try everything. Even the smallest bit of stupidity works. So after you get that from Biff, the DeLorean comes in with Einie in it, and a little recording message from Doc saying that the DeLorean has an automatic retrieval system where if he's gone for too long, the DeLorean jumps to where Marty is for some reason. God, how many other Martys did this thing have to go through before it went to the right one? So we gotta find out what happened to Doc, which leads us to having an old shoe in the DeLorean, and Einstein sniffs it. Brings us to Edna Strickland, who, yeah, she's the relative of the Principal Strickland, and oh boy, if for those of you who did not see my top 13 worst video game villain list, yeah, I'll get to that in a bit. So after we find out that Doc was suspected of being an arsonist back in 1931 and getting killed by mobsters, we have to go rescue him. And I gotta say, it's a great destination to go. It's a great time period. I mean, Prohibition was happening still. The style was different. I just love old-time styles in video games. I mean, they don't go too heavy on it. They just go, like, on the characters and the aesthetic of the clothing, which I love. And, oh my god, we have such a great ensemble of characters to go through. We get young Edna Strickland, who talks about how booze and bad things are all bad, surprisingly, but she's more of a zealot. Think religious zealot, just without the religion. But, you know, all the overzealousness. We got Kid Tannen, who is Biff's father and a freaking mob boss. We got Arthur McFly, Marty's grandfather, who is, no shock, the pencil pusher to Kid Tannen's operation. We got Trixie Trotter, who's Tannen's girlfriend and a lounge singer, which I gotta say. Also, for those of you who don't notice it, her voice is the voice of Clementine from the Walking Dead series. So, the more you know. And then we go to the prison to talk to Doc. Not only that, but we get to meet 18-year-old Emmett Brown. We get to meet Doc when he's a friggin' teenager. And I mean, I gotta say, out of everything they could have done, I'm glad they did this. And evidently he works as a law clerk. Because his dad's a judge, and his dad's kind of a strict guy. I'm just gonna say this. Meeting Doc as a teenager is amazing. Pushing him to this scene of science is amazing. So, anyway, I'm digressing. I'm not going to go through every single episode like this. I'm going to go do little bits of each episode. So, basically, all we got to do to break Doc out of jail is get Emmett's rocket drill going, and we need a couple things to do that. We need to deliver us, in order to get him invested in science. Obviously, we got to lie to him about who we are, because, you know, mess with the timeline. Oh, dear God. So we gotta do a couple things, like in any point-click adventure game. We gotta deliver a subpoena to Artie McFly. We gotta get the booze out of the speakeasy for the rocket fuel. And a good number of things happened, but I'm not gonna get too much into it. Then we gotta do a quick mini-game where, depending on what Emmett says as he's arguing with his father, we need to do a certain order of reactions in order to create the rocket fuel. And in the end of the episode, we get out, and Marty starts to fade away. Turns out that after we gave the subpoena to Arthur, Kid wasn't really happy about his accountant turning snitch. So then we got to go back in time to the previous day and stop that from happening. And again, the little things of how we get the situation solved and done, it's brilliant. Like putting chloroform into the artist's ink so he falls asleep, using a broken light to get one guy out, and then using a beer bottle, a wine bottle, to break a guy's head open. Okay, not really, just knock him out. When everything's solved, we get Artie McFly out of Hill Valley for a bit until he has to meet Marty's grandfather, so he's still alive. Unfortunately, when we jump back, it turns out because Artie went away for a bit, Kid Tannen wasn't put in jail, and pretty much the Tannens practically run Hill Valley again. Well, if that's the case, I'm heading to Pleasure Island. At least I can gamble. So again, we got to go back months later, back in 1931, in order to put Kintannen behind bars. And that is one of my favorite episodes, episode 2, doing all these little scenarios, getting kids' girlfriend to turn on him, getting the cop, who is Marty's girlfriend's grandfather, to sober up and arrest Kintannen. The entirety of the episode is beautiful in episode 2, until the end where Doc explains that seeing Frankenstein is what gave him his big idea for the Science Expo that's due to happen months later after the episode 2. Unfortunately, after stopping Kintannen, Edna Strickland catches the eye of Emmett, and the ticket of Frankenstein starts to disappear. And then we're back in 1986, and 1986 or 98, 1980s. Sorry, I'm a little still confused about the timeline. Seriously, I need to do a chart here. But it basically turns out that everything's under Citizen Brown's control. And if you guys thought Biff Tannen's alternate timeline was screwed up, wait till you see this place. It's like if Sheldon Cooper ruled the world. Everything is clean. Everyone has to wear polo shirts. There are no cars. Everyone drives freaking golf carts. What is this, Florida? Not only that, doing certain violations gets you demerits, such as loitering, littering, having dogs, alcohol, public displays of affection. It's a literal police state if everyone was crazy. Seriously. This is Sheldon Cooper Town. Oh, dear God. Imagine that kind of nightmare. At least in Biff's alternate timeline, there were actually women and booze and gambling going on. Here, there's nothing. And oh boy, is it terrible. So once again, in order to fix things, we need to speak to Citizen Brown, which means we need to do 3 things. Get caught with a dog. Get caught with alcohol, and win Jennifer, Peter's ex-girlfriend back from a real loser. By doing a really, really fun and challenging sometimes rock and roll puzzle. Also, little side note, the actress who was originally Jennifer Parker in the first movie, for that 5 minutes of movie time, she comes back to voice Jennifer. Really glad they brought her back. And then afterwards, we find out that Edna's the one who has the Citizen Plus program and used it on Biff to turn him into a mindless zombie with a watch. I remember in Kamen Rider, watches were cool and got you to transform. They didn't take control over you. And also in Ben 10, watches were cool, and now she's just ruined it. And in episode 4, we gotta get Doc back and get him to break up with Edna because she practically used his science to make everything under her control. Oh dear God, seriously, if Sheldon Cooper ever ruled the world, this is what it would look like, people. So in episode 4, we go back in time after new Doc fixes the DeLorean. Unfortunately, we jump a little too far, October 12th, which is the opening day of the Expo. So we're about 2 months behind of trying to break them up, which is terrible. So once again, we gotta break them up, which indeed, what is with games and doing 3 tasks? This time we gotta make Emmett look like he's a degenerate via his mind machine. We gotta make him look like a slob by ruining the suit that Edna's grandfather wore. Trust me, if it's anything like... Trust me, it's worth destroying. And we gotta get Trixie's help in order to make Edna jealous. Breaking up is hard to do, but at this point, it's worth it, saving the timeline. And also, we get Trixie kind of fired, so... yeah, she's willing to help us. Because she's the muse for the whole Expo, and Edna hates that she's a gangster's girl doing something nice like this. I don't know. At the end of it all, we get Emmett to get his epiphany. Not in the way we planned, but it still works. And then Doc kind of screws us over and goes with Edna and, tells her practically everything. Episode 5 is by far one of the kind of not the best episodes of the game, but definitely one that really kind of pushes the envelope on making things look really cool for the future. So we get the Expo. Doc kind of screws us over again, and he basically says that was science that Edna used to turn Hill Valley into a police state. So she's trying to screw young Emmett over, just so Edna can steer him down a path away from science. Yeah, because that's gonna work. So we get to the Expo, and we need to make Edna look bad, while at the same time looking for Emmett. And I gotta say, the Expo is one of the most brilliantly designed sections of this game. Mostly because of how all the futuristic stuff we got, like a bathysphere, a glass house, a home of the future, police equipment of the future. It just goes to show of how creative people in the 30s could definitely be, and how creative the designers were in making it seem like this is what people of the 30s would think of as the future. Not as much as people from the 50s, but still very amazing overall. And I know it's a side note, but the whole arsonist thing, yeah, turns out we get a recording of Edna admitting she's the arsonist. Yeah, who saw that coming? Oh yeah, me. I'm gonna say this right now, just like I did in my top 13 worst villains. It's not revealed that she's the arsonist until episode 5, and kind of hinted that she's freaking crazy in episode 3, but I figured it out in episode 1. How? Let's see. Speakeasies are being burnt down, and there's a woman literally right here that talks about booze, sin, and debauchery. Yeah. Also, the fact that Einstein constantly growls at her and barks at her whenever she's around. Yeah, dogs only do that to people who are bad. Not only that, but not to mention that's the only logical reason that Einstein had her shoe in the first bit of episode. Seriously, this is something that was revealed in episode 5, and yet I managed to figure it out in the first 10 minutes of episode 1? Really? Yeah, that's what takes this game down just a little bit. The twist villain being so predictable. No, just doesn't work. Anyway, and after failing to make Emmett lose sight of science, she jumps into the DeLorean that's screwed up, and we get Doc back again. Unfortunately, Hill Valley disappears later, and we get a great cameo from William McFly. Thank you, William McFly from Back to the Future 3. He peed on me. Voiced by Michael J. Fox. Also, yeah, just gonna say, Christopher Lloyd does come back to voice Doc, but it's not even Michael J. Fox voicing Marty in this game. They found a YouTuber, I can't remember his name, but he did a lot of voices, so they brought him in, and it's uncanny. If you don't watch the end credits, and if you don't research it at all, you will have no idea that wasn't Michael J. Fox being Marty all this time. So, that's what I'm going to say. The entire voice acting is beautiful. And I'm just going to skip ahead. The ending of the game it's kind of awkward, and it kind of does that gag at the end of the first episode, but weird, at the end of the first movie, but weirder. And oh dear God. Anyway, back to the game. Well, that's the whole game. So as fun as it is, it's really amazing. And how long I rambled about the game. Hey, at least I didn't spend like 30 minutes on each episode, so be thankful for that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to get this through as much as I can. Overall, the game is beautifully animated. The characters, you actually believe they're there, and you believe they could have been in the Back to the Future universe. And it's amazing that how they did that. Just by doing character from concept to design and to the overall feel of each section of the game, it makes you feel like you're in that timeline. You feel like you're in the 1930s. You feel like you're in a screwed up utopia. I'm just glad that we didn't go into the future in this game, because they already did that in the second movie, so it didn't need to be done here. I'm glad we spent most of the time in the past. Voice acting is incredible. It definitely makes you feel like the characters are alive. The puzzles are challenging. And, I mean, if you don't figure it out, there's no real penalty to do it. You just don't progress through the game until you solve it. And oh dear Lord, every episode has their own unique set of items to use, how to use them, and it's just beautifully done. It's definitely a great game. And for time-wise, the entire game to beat is 12 hours long. So that's about, let's see, 5, 2, 4, 6, 8. So a little over 2 hours for each episode. Just a little bit. Let's see what else. So there is no decision-making in this game, but there are plenty of trophies to find for trophy hunters. In every single episode, I'm going to talk about a couple of them. For example, in episode 1, there's one where you got to do the mixing the alcohol fuel exactly without missing a beat. There's one for talking to Doc about where the new DeLorean came from. In episode 2, we got one where we got figure out the password without cheating. And also, if you look at all the caricatures on the wall in the speakeasy, you get an achievement there. In episode 3, if you get every single demerit in the game, which is irritating as hell, using the spray paint to spray Marty's band name, Marty and the Pinheads. Also, this game does a hell of a job of incorporating jokes and gags from other movies, from other franchises, a little bit into the game, and also using gag jokes from the movies themselves. Like we do, that guy took his wallet, or we do the what is that with all the tannins. It's just beautifully done. I love how they incorporate a little bit of every idea from the first 3 movies into the game. It makes you feel like they took the time and the effort to care about the movies and to make it part of the game. But yeah, I'm just gonna say this again. The villain was predictable as all hell. I was hoping for something better, but it only brings it down a little bit. And also having Doc's backstory understand a little bit more. It feels like this could have happened in the universe of the movies. Having Doc's life be like this before science. It's beautiful to look at because we focused on Marty, we focused on his parents, but we never really focused on Doc until the 3rd movie mostly. So it's something like that they took the time to think about. It was beautifully done. This game is pure magic. It's amazing. One of Telltale's best, and definitely one of my personal favorites. It will take me a long time before I play it again, but for people who haven't played this game and are big Back to the Future fans, download it, buy the whole game if you want at video game stores, download it. It's practically for every single console, and for PC. Go out and buy it, and I'm pretty sure after 10 years, I'm pretty sure the price has gone down a bit. And also, just for a little something, I love this game, and I love Back to the Future, and if I see just one person post a link that they are rebooting it the same way they did the Ghostbuster movie, I will throw you into a truck full of manure, and you're not gonna like it. But so, being an amazing adventure game, and it ties into the entire universe, and it feels like it's its own story and not heavily incorporating on the movies to make it its own thing. With the villain being so predictable, with so many achievements to find, so many fun puzzles, and just to enjoy this amazing world, GamerK's final verdict for Back to the Future, the game, is an 8 out of 10. Well, that's it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And coming up next week for my dad's birthday, we celebrate it with a game that's a sequel to that started with a mouse that really started with a rabbit. This is GamerK, logging out.